Hello everyone, my name is Uzo from Uzo's Food Labs and welcome. Today I'm going to be dealing with greens. A lot of people don't like their greens, me included. So in order to make the greens a little bit more interesting, I'm just going to be cooking it in a slightly unusual way. Well, unusual to me anyway. Ever since I started doing this, I feel like I'm eating more greens, which is definitely better for me. Plus, my son, who's almost 5, likes this as well. So you can't go wrong with any kind of cooking that allows kids to eat their vegetables. So it's pretty simple as usual, and the ingredients are pretty easy to find and pocket friendly as well. So you will need olive oil. I use a lot of olive oil in my cooking because it's better for you, but you can definitely use vegetable oil or peanut oil. Coconut milk, my second favorite ingredient after lemons, some salt, which I will use after I taste it, and then these are pumpkin leaves. We call it ugu, but it's pumpkin leaves, but you use any kind of leaves that you like. You can do a mix as well, so you can mix it up with kale or Swiss chard, just as long as it's not water leaf, or that gets pretty soggy. And then my aromatics, some garlic, some chopped chilies from my garden, and some chopped onions. And then I'm going to be using some basil to give it some oomph. Again, it's African basil, so you can use scent leaf, you can use nchang, it's the same thing. And I'm going to be using a Maggi all-purpose cube. Now, I will add the salt, like I said, after I've tasted. So we're going to get to the cooker. So we're going to get the greens going. First things off, you need a relatively large saucepan. And then you're going to put your olive oil in, or any kind of oil that you're using. If you're using olive oil, it has a very low smoking point, so you want to start adding all of your ingredients pretty much immediately. So I'll just make sure that my pan is covered, and I'll go ahead and add my onions, my garlic, and the chilies. Now, by adding it when the olive oil is still a little bit cold, as the oil gets hotter, then the flavors are going to start to be extracted, obviously. So, see, it happens relatively quickly because it's olive oil. But if it's vegetable oil, you want to wait for the oil to get hot before you add your aromatics in. Now, when I was a child, I hated eating greens, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. But the older that I've gotten, I realize it's good for me. And obviously, if you're trying to watch your weight, the more greens and fibers that you add into your diet, the more successful you'll be. So I've had to come up with interesting ways to make the greens more interesting for me. So I usually add my seasonings at this point because the frying process makes the flavors come out a little bit more, and it fries out there's something acrid about spices, especially if they're dried immediately, if you add it immediately. So you need to let those mellow out a little bit, or else you're not going to enjoy the full flavor. So I used about half a cube of the Maggi cube, the regular one, and then you can see it's moving pretty quickly. Our vegetables are getting translucent, which means that they're turning a little bit brown, but you don't want them to burn. So at this point, fast and furious, you need to add your greens. Greens are one of the easiest things for you to grow in your garden. Some require a little bit more care than others. For instance, the ugu leaf requires a trellis or some kind of support for it to climb up. But other greens, kale and things like that, are pretty easy to grow. So a quick stir fry. I need to have the greens have a little bit of crunch. So you need to cook very, very quickly. At this point, I add my coconut milk. I'll start with about half of what was in my bowl, which is half of a can. And the coconut milk adds a creaminess to the greens. It softens it up a little bit, and it gives it an interesting color, which is what you want as well. It's ready for me. The vegetables will still have a little bit of bite. The coconut milk is nice and creamy. It hasn't been overcooked. I'll turn the heat off. And when you turn the heat off, either take the pan off. If you leave the pan on, the greens are still going to continue cooking. And notice that I didn't cover it, because if I cover it, it causes like a steaming sensation. So you're actually going to have water from the greens come out, which is what we don't want. So the greens are ready. We're going to plate up and I'll taste. It's at this point that I like to add my raw scent leaf, because it's still a little bit hot. I'll give it a quick toss so that I still have the vibrant flavor of the scent leaf or the basil in there. I don't want to overcook it. I love that freshness. And that's it. Pretty simple. Either have it, like I said, with something, but I mean, I'm gonna have just a bowl of it. Now, when you're making greens as well, realize that greens will shrink in volume. So if you're cooking for a large number of people, then you need a large amount of greens, and it's going to look absolutely impossible. But as it wilts and cooks, it will shrink. So I think this is the perfect portion for me. And there you have it. I'm gonna taste it. It's perfect. The ugu is still a little bit crunchy. I can taste the onions, I can taste the garlic. That scent leaf is coming through perfectly. Leave your comments down below if you try it, if you have suggestions. How else do you like to eat your greens? How do you make the kids eat your greens? Subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media at Usos Food Labs, and we will be looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. And I promise, the next episode is going to be full of sugar and fat. Have a good one.